Going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Weekly Narrative. Just getting a few things set up here. This is your Saturday night edition. I'm solo for now. Delaney should be showing up shortly here. As you can see from the notes and the stream title today, we've got some juicy topics to go over, including, but not limited to, an article from BBC.com on China promoting masculinity in its schools. Now, this is going to be a stark contrast to what you guys are used to seeing here in America, and that's the reason for the article. We're going to, you talk about China and schools, two of the top topics that we talk about here on the stream, and they will clash here as we see what China's approach will be to schooling. We've already known what's going on in America's schools. We're teaching kids how to be gay and how to protest. China's got a different approach, and we're going to take a look at that. Then we're going to be jumping into a Times article from Time.com, Time magazine. A lot of hubbub around the internet on this one. Everyone's covering this, and this is the one that everyone's crying about. They're talking about how there was a shadow campaign, and there was a secret cabal that controlled the outcome of the election, etc., etc. We're going to take a look at that and see if it is really what they say it is. Because it sounds like a great article for conservatives to point to and say, hey, oh my God, look at, oh my God. But I don't know if it's really going to fulfill those shoes. We'll take a look at it. We're going to talk about, in our, a segment on Mad Max, Decline of Society. We've got a video from San Francisco. Somebody caught a video on the freeway, a dash cam of somebody literally getting highway robbed. Highway robbery is back, ladies and gentlemen, in 2021. If that's not a sign of devolution, I don't know what else is. We'll take a quick look at that video, add some commentary on the state of society to that. What's going on, Stalking Horse and Dari? See you guys in chat over there. AP wrote an article about the race war and how the insurrection on the 6th was just a minor symptom of an ongoing race war that's been persistent ever since slavery has existed. So we're going to look at that, and that is going to be part of the 9/11 playbook segment. So the 9/11 playbook, which you guys heard me refer to multiple times here previously, is referencing the same playbook that was used in 9/11 to attack domestic terrorists, mostly white people, Trump supporters, here in America now. We're using the same playbook, just this time on our own people. And this is a continuation of that. In a similar vein, we've got an MSNBC host suggesting that drone strikes could be used domestically. And we've got Bank of America giving out customer records to law enforcement unknowingly. Yes, sir. So, that could also fit into our parallel societies segment, because now we're seeing basically a large segment of society simply being separated out involuntarily, whether they like it or not. And we've also got a hilarious story about the left and how they will eventually eat their own. I've got a reassuring story for you here, not to show a double standard, but just to point out the future of the left, because we have Ibram Kendi. If you guys don't know who Ibram Kendi is, you're not paying close enough attention. He's the guy who, well, we'll get into it. Let me roll that awesome intro, and then we'll jump into it. Let's go. Welcome to episode number 37, ladies and gentlemen. That right there is the sound of a delicious Coke Zero. Hopefully we're going to get a sponsorship sometime soon. Let's jump into our first topic today. As we're waiting for Delaney, you may have noticed she's not here right now. She's likely going to be a little late today. Let's jump into the first topic here. Probably the most interesting one for me. I had to laugh out loud when I saw this. From BBC News, China promotes education drive to make boys more manly. Sounds familiar here? No, it doesn't. That's right, because in America we promote education to make our boys feminine. We destroy their masculinity. We make them as feminine as possible, make them as unproductive as possible for society. That seems to be the point of the education system of America. Really, the goal is not to educate, make people smart, and make them productive. It is to feminize them and to remove their ability to be productive. I don't know. What do you guys think? What's up, Holly? We got Osis in chat. Stalking Horse already said what's up. Come on, guys. Fill it up. Grab a seat. Grab a drink. We got a lot to go over tonight. By Carrie Allen, BBC, 3 days ago. A notice from China's education ministry has caused a stir after it suggested young Chinese men have become too feminine. The message had been criticized as sexist by many online users, but some say China's male celebrities are partly to blame. So interesting, they're China's celebrities. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to Asian celebrities at all. K-pop is a big thing, which is Korean pop music, and they basically have the equivalent of boy bands in Korea and Asia. And boy bands seem to be the thing right now. And the boy bands are all very feminine. They're completely emasculinated. They're very scrawny. They're all just really weak and pathetic looking, to be honest. But that's what's being promoted, and I think this is kind of a backlash to that. Delaney has entered the building, everybody. For a while, China's government has signaled concern that the country's most popular male role models are no longer strong athletic figures like army heroes. Even President Xi Jinping, well-known football enthusiast, has long been seeking to cultivate better sports stars. Okay, so then also a movement towards sports as well. Welcome.
What's up, everybody?
Glad you can make it. This is an article about China promoting education drive to make boys more manly.
Oh, okay.
We're basically going to be talking about how China's going to completely wreck America in 10 or 20 years.
They've already got smart kids, so now they just need smart and strong kids.
Well, they don't have just smart kids. They have genetically modified super kids.
That's true.
They have no morals over there. They will inject pig DNA, whatever kind of stuff they can put in their kids they're making them glow in the dark, putting jellyfish DNA in them, stuff like that. And now on top of that, they're going to start making them more masculine.
Hell yeah. I mean, that's kind of what we've been talking about with China. That was going to be one of their things that has been holding them back is the fact that their boys aren't very manly. They're not big and strong. And
there was an article that we talked about right when we first started doing this that was basically kind of on the same vein of this, where they were talking about how they need to make the education more tailored to masculine and to boys and how boys learn, because they learn in a very different manner than men.
Yes.
So they've already been on this path for a while. They're just now coming out and saying, like, straight up, like, hey, we need to, like they said right here, you missed it, but the first sentence, a notice from China's education ministry has caused a stir after it suggested young Chinese men have become too feminine.
Oh. So at least they acknowledge it.
So they've identified a problem. Oh no, these guys are insane. Wait till you hear what they say about the femininity in the boys. So last week, the education ministry issued a notice with a title that left no doubt about its ultimate goal: the proposal to prevent the feminization of male adolescents. Called
PFMA.
Called on schools to fully reform their offerings on physical education and strengthen the recruitment of teachers.
Okay.
The text advised recruiting retired athletes and people from sporting backgrounds and vigorously developing a particular sport like football with a view on cultivating students' masculinity.
So Yao Ming, go back to China and start teaching your young folks in China about how to be manly.
I think they mentioned him in the next
Oh, they do?
here.
Hell yeah. That's all that comes to mind when I think of like somewhat normal Chinese person. That's Yao Ming, even though he's like 7'3".
Ooh, that's some good gin right there.
Some Tangerang.
Bring Kung Fu back.
Hell yeah.
China wants to take over everything. Hey, I think they are on the right path.
It's a good strategy.
It does seem like they are actually. So that's what's interesting about China versus America. China looks like a country that has at a goal. America looks like a country that just the goal is to like be as comfortable and have as easy of a life as possible.
Yep.
They're two completely different pictures.
We used to have goals.
No, we used to. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
we used to have goals, and single goal was to be the best at everything that we did. You know, if something was made in America, had that, you know, stamp on it, that was like something to be proudful of. Now, like you said, with how we have been brainwashed with everything, the goal for America has changed. It's to be, like you said, comfortable. It's to get everything as cheap as possible, and you know, just not really have that drive to be better, I guess.
We made it to the top, and then we got complacent.
Yep, we got
That's
fat.
really what happened. We're on the way down, folks.
We got fat and had body odor.
Do you guys understand that we are on the way down? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
China is on the way up. We are on the way down.
We went all the way up just to go all the way down.
Time to buy stock in China.
Hell yeah.
Figuratively speaking, because it's going to be worth a lot more in the future. China has a 100-year plan. Yes, exactly. See, they've been around a lot longer than us. They
understand what's up.
They've figured it out. And some of the lines that they drop in here towards the end will give you a clue to that. So, okay. It's a decisive push in a country where the media does not really allow for anything other than its squeaky clean, quote-unquote, socially responsible stars. So trying to make the image more rugged. They're tired of having those boy bands, the feminized Asian boy men.
Those freaking K-pop bands.
Exactly. But there were some earlier signs suggesting such a move was coming. Last May, a delegate of China's top advisory board, Shi Zifu, said that many of China's young males have become weak, timid, and self-abasing. I think that's probably the article that we talked about. Because we did talk about that around that time frame. There was a trend among young Chinese males towards feminization, which would inevitably endanger. Listen to this. This is the part. This is the bomb right here.
The big bomb.
This is the bomb.
The dunk.
The dunk. Prepare your dunks. There was a trend among young Chinese males towards feminization, he claimed, which, quote, would inevitably endanger the survival and development of the Chinese nation unless it was effectively managed.
So they realized, we've kind of become little weaklings, so it's time to step up or step the F out.
What have we been saying this whole entire time on this stream? One of the themes underlying everything that we talk about on this stream is the balance between feminine and masculine. Right now in America, everything is heavily leaning towards feminization.
Yep.
It's not even trying to have a balance.
Yeah.
It's trying to destroy masculinity to the fullest extent and maximize femininity.
Well, they're even destroying femininity too.
Well, that's the ironic part, is they're making femininity. They're trying to make the women more masculine.
Yeah, they're trying to.
But promoting it by saying that it's feminine.
Yeah, they're taking away what makes women feminine by calling it feminine, even though it's totally a masculine attribute. Yeah.
So just so you guys are aware, to add some context to this, BBC hates this. Everyone who writes for BBC hates this idea. They because BBC is kind of left leaning. They are definitely gigantic proponents of feminism. They pump out feminist propaganda on their channels and their news outlets.
I was going to say, pretty sure most of their reporters are women.
Yeah, no. This BBC was the same outlet that looked at their staffing, I think it was last year or the year before, and they said, we don't have enough women as staff, and then I think they fired a bunch of their guys. They did some ridiculous stuff like that. But they're on board with the feminism. That's the point I'm trying to make. So as you're reading this, just remember that they're taking the angle of these are the bad guys.
Oh yeah, China's evil now.
Yeah, so now we're going to get into some of the criticisms. What are men afraid of? This typical argument, anytime you try to advocate for masculinity. And then we got one of the, these boy bands. I can barely distinguish the men from the women.
I know, that's the thing about
it's
these
only
K-pop
the hair
groups,
length.
dude.
The hair length is the only thing.
And sometimes the girls are like more masculine looking than the boys. They'll have shorter hair and look way more masculine.
Yeah, no, it's true. So yeah, they cry about is feminization a derogatory term? Another person commented, boys are also humans, being emotional, timid, or gentle. These are human characteristics. What are men afraid of? Being the same as women? So
No.
BBC had to throw these in there to kind of make their argument for them, because that's what they would reply with, basically. The The article continues on to say social media platforms comments are pointing out China's male celebrities being the blame, largely those who are known as quote little fresh meats.
Okay.
Fresh meat.
They're fresh meats.
This is a buzzword that refers to young Chinese male icons who are seen as squeaky clean, well groomed, and with delicate features. Fresh meats. Oh.
That's hilarious. They don't have any facial hair yet. They're totally fresh.
Boy bands and Chinese singers fall into this category, like with K-pop stars. So, and then they mention Yao Ming, who says, while figures like basketball player Yao Ming have found overseas fame, it's notable that football specifically is included in the proposal, which is interesting because you don't think of football when you think of China.
No, not at all.
So maybe that's the one thing that they took from America.
Oh yeah,
They looked
copy
at America
everything.
and they saw, oh yes, Brett Favre.
Yeah.
We need to be like a
Tom
Brett Favre.
Brady. We need to be like a Tom Brady. We need to be more like a Patrick Mahomes. They probably telling you.
No, that's really the most predominant example of that sport in the world. So they had to have
steal
seen
from
it.
us and like.
No, you're right. That does follow their MO. They steal everything.
So why not football?
So they steal. They took the one good thing about America, which was football, and then they're stealing that.
Yep. I mean, China also during the Olympics, they are pretty comparable to us when it comes to, I think, gymnastics. Their gymnastics team is usually pretty freaking like badass, but those girls are, getting tortured and abused. So told if they shame their country that they can never, be out in public ever again.
Oh yeah, they get whipped as soon as they're off camera. So there you go. They don't give any specifics on this. I did try to read the notice, but it was in Chinese, so I didn't get too far.
Yeah, I don't speak Chinese.
Google Translate gave me a rough outline.
And even Chinese, there's like 200 different dialects.
The point is, they understand and recognize what the problem is. They understand that fundamentally, at the base level, society is balanced off of feminine and masculine. And all they're doing, they're not saying feminism is bad. They're not saying, femininity is bad.
Yeah.
They're saying it's too out of balance. They're recognizing it and they're making adjustments.
Yep.
Which is what a country would be doing if it was interested in its own future.
It's what we should be doing.
What we should be doing.
Which we should be doing, but, we don't live in should land. So all we can do is just point it out and hopefully people try to wake up and see it for themselves.
Oh, Osa says maybe they mean soccer. Yeah, you're right.
Maybe they do
Maybe
mean soccer.
because it was a BBC article.
Maybe they do mean soccer.
Well, soccer's probably not going to make your guys more masculine. I would probably say that's.
I don't know. Some of these soccer dudes are pretty fucking decked out. And their legs are gigantic.
Yeah, but I'm saying soccer's a lame sport.
It is a lame sport. I will agree with you on
That's
that.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
There's not a lot. There is physical contact, a lot of it, but not nearly as brutal as football. I don't know if Chinese men could handle football. I really don't.
Well, it won't be as intense because they're much smaller. But
they definitely wouldn't be able to handle the XFL or the Extreme Football League.
Yeah.
I remember Vince McMahon was trying to bring that back again, but I don't know if he's going to.
When do they plan on getting rid of suicide nets? Well,
never.
China's not known for its human rights.
Yeah, well, they're not known for being very humane with a lot of things. So
before we jump into the Time article, which talks about the secret cabals, the shadowy campaigns behind the 2020 election, let's go into a short little clip here, just to break it up a little bit, of a highway robbery.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw this or not, but there's a literally highway robbery occurring now in San Francisco, of course.
Oh, okay.
Because San Francisco is the most progressed city in the country as far as the leftist agenda goes and the degeneracy. So it's natural that you would see these things start to happen first in San Francisco. Let's pull up a video here.
Well, that's kind of the worst place to. That's kind of the worst place to get stuck on a high-speed chase or anything like that. With all that traffic.
Oh, there's no such thing as high speed in San Francisco.
I was gonna say that would be like.
That's a oxymoron. High-speed chase in San Francisco?
No way.
Okay, so I'm gonna describe this as we watch the video for the podcast listeners. What we're seeing right now is basically an exit on a highway. Traffic is moving, stop and go 5 miles an hour. A black Civic is pulling up behind a silver Prius. A guy jumps out of the Civic, smashes the back window of the Prius, yanks out what appears to be a backpack or a piece of luggage, and they're at a standstill, so they can't go anywhere.
Wow.
And then two guys who look like absolute soy boys get out of the Prius, surprise, who most likely voted for this kind of thing to happen in the first place.
Oh my goodness.
Literally just highway.
He just has a hammer on the highway.
Smashed the back window as they were
Wow.
stopped.
So yeah, we're never going to San
there you go.
Francisco.
That's
Never
and
again.
In the background, you can see, just there's apartment buildings and things like that. Just
Mm-hmm.
normal, seemingly normal society. It's not even like a bad area. And yeah, just if you have a backpack in your
Backseat.
back seat,
They'll jack you while you're in
you
traffic.
get jacked while you're sitting at a
They
exit.
used to just follow you and wait till you stop and go into somewhere and jack you when you go somewhere, but now they just jack you on the freeway on-ramp. Commander O says that's one of the last Bay Bridge's entrances. So they're trying to get on the Bay Bridge.
Yeah,
That,
which is a nightmare.
that's a nightmare in and of itself. And then on top of that, they just got freaking ripped off by some soy boys in a black Civic. Like, that's some...
No. The people in the Civic were black.
Oh, they were black?
The soy boys were in the Prius.
Oh, soy boys were in the Prius. I thought
Prius got jacked. The guy this guy,
that guy kind of looks a little skinny.
he looks skinny,
He looks a little scrawny.
but
The guy
okay,
is-
it's inconclusive. He's definitely scrawny.
He's definitely scrawny, but you can't tell his race
but
because
it's-
his back is turned to
no,
us.
it's probably, I don't know. He looked black there with the hands.
Man had bad gloves on.
I'm not even, inconclusive. from
Yeah,
the video.
inconclusive. But anyways, it's just the
It's
fact.
a meth. He's skinny because of the meth. He's not
Yeah.
skinny because of the soy.
Yeah.
The guys in the Prius, they're
The
soyed
guys
out.
are in the Prius are the soy boys. My
Yeah,
bad. I thought
yeah,
you were talking because I saw the skinny kid just come up and bust the window open. So I thought that you were talking about that skinny kid.
So there's the irony is that the people in that Prius likely were in support of the policies that led to the increase in crime in San Francisco.
Yep, probably voted for Nancy Pelosi.
They're slowly realizing that the water is boiling, that
Mm.
life there is going to become even more unbearable than it already was. I mean, these guys, to even get in that stupid little Prius, they had to walk over human feces on the sidewalk.
Yep.
They had to look at the guy with his wang out behind the dumpster on the way to the parking lot.
Yep.
The guy that was peeing in the bush.
The chick that has no clothes on but a blanket wrapped around her and her head shaved and
Yep.
has no shoes on and just walking around the neighborhood.
Just a lot of those. Probably 3 of those on the way to the car.
Yep.
And then they get in the car, and then this happens on the way to the work. I mean, it's a classic case, likely a classic case of getting what you asked for. But the question really is, when do they become self-aware? Or do they ever become self-aware? What is it going to take? Do they have to? I mean, these guys got robbed. Are they going to rethink their politics after this? Maybe maybe they want
Yes.
stricter law enforcement.
So smart people, after something like this happens, would rethink things. But because this person's probably not very smart, they're probably just gonna never wake up, never have that realization. Like,
They're just so programmed that they're never gonna.
I mean,
They're gonna see the next attorney general for San Francisco
I mean,
comes in and he says that he wants to legalize crime, and then they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, that's
well,
great."
Jeremy, if they're willing to walk over needles, human feces, crazy people, homeless camps to get to their shitty little Prius, pretty sure the cognitive the programming is already like deeply embedded into their
Yeah,
skulls
it's true.
because. Like I said, it's just in there
There's
because
nothing that you can do to break them out of it.
yeah, I mean,
think.
like I said, a normal person who isn't used to this would either be like, oh my god,
Well, that's like my reaction to it. I see this and I'm like, "Holy Jesus! I would not live
Yeah.
there, and if I did live there, I would look at leaving immediately." Because so in case you're unaware, San Francisco, on top of the needles and the feces and all that kind of stuff, they've basically legalized crime to some degree.
yes,
You can do these things and you never get arrested. You can shoot heroin right on the street. You don't get arrested.
Yep.
You can go into a Walgreens or any kind of store, retail store, steal stuff and just walk out. Nobody's going to stop you,
Yeah.
and they won't even arrest you because there's a monetary limit on how much the city put on like an arrestable offense. You walk in. We've seen videos of hordes of people running into Walgreens
yes,
or
and
CVS's
and just jacking all the
with,
makeup and
with trash bags, and they just fill it
Yep.
up.
And then the people working there are like, stop, stop, stop. And then by the time the cops get there, all of it's gone anyways.
Well, the cops won't even do anything
Yeah,
anyway.
the cops don't even care.
Because it's not a criminal offense under their laws. They've set
Mm-hmm.
monetary limits that basically legalize this type of crime.
Yep.
So you're seeing just heaps.
They've also illegally allowed homeless people to sleep on the streets, pitch a tent on the street, and just sleep on the sidewalk. Even though that's a environmental hazard for one, and it's also a safety hazard. Like, it's a safety hazard to have people sleeping on the street, and not to mention
You don't say.
sanitary as well. It's like, that's not like, you're dealing with rats, mice, all kinds of just nasty stuff on the ground, and like allowing them to sleep on the ground.
Yeah, Osis dropping some facts in chat. He says Walgreens has closed up certain locations due to theft.
Yep, but according to the leftists, it's because of racism, Osis. Because
Right. No, they would. You know, if the people who were working at the Walgreens called the cops, then they were racist. You have to let them get away with the crime because equality.
yeah, no, it's sad. Like, one of my dearest and oldest friends, she's a black girl, and she lives in Oakland, and Oakland is heavily just in it. Just
heavily. It's just
heavily in the degeneracy and all that stuff. And
It's really bad.
It is bad. I mean,
I was there a few times last year.
They had that Breonna Taylor statue up for 2 weeks before it got vandalized and then it got broken. So that's how bad it is. And she's like legit convinced that like companies like Whole Foods and Sprouts and all these like big chain companies don't have their store locations in the ghetto in the hoods because of racism.
Oh, you know what?
And it's not true. It's a cost thing for them.
That's a great thing that you bring up, because what the leftists always say about this, when there's no healthy food options in our neighborhood.
Yeah, all we have is fast food.
Stuff like that. You're witnessing the reason for that in real time. What you're seeing is businesses who are trying to provide these services to certain neighborhoods, being pushed out of the neighborhood because of crime, where they were providing services before and access to drugs, pharmaceuticals, whatever it was. There's a COVID discussion happening because, racial inequality in COVID because black people can't get access to the vaccines and they can't get access to testing.
Right.
Okay, so here's another example of maybe why that could be happening. You're seeing Walgreens and other places like that literally getting kicked out of the cities because of the crime. And then they cry about racism.
They say it's racist.
Because the stores won't open up.
It's like, no.
And then I don't have access. Well, okay, there was a Walgreens here a year ago. What happened between now and a year ago?
Yeah, what happened? Take a look at like all the crime and stuff that has happened in this span of time since the Walgreens went up and the time the Walgreens closed. Like, it's not racism, folks. If you honestly, sincerely believe that companies like Whole Foods, Sprouts, Nugget, all of these big name, like high-end, like really good grocery stores aren't in black neighborhoods because of racism, then you are a part of the problem. It is not because of racism. It's about cost. They don't want to set up shop in neighborhoods that are garbage and have garbage people that treat them like shit. Like, nobody wants that.
They can usually get away with that because you haven't been able to point to any particular examples of that happening. Like, look, this healthy Whole Food store left because of whatever XYZ reason. It doesn't happen in real time as you're trying to explain it to them. But now you can say, we've seen stores being forced to leave because of minorities committing crime in those stores repeatedly, making it unfeasible to do business.
Yeah, and then when they take measures to prevent crime from happening and theft from happening in their stores by, i.e., like hiring loss prevention officers that are there to watch people to make sure they're not stealing. Oh, you're racist.
Yeah, and if you call the cops on them if they steal, you're racist too.
Yeah, especially if it's a black chick.
So do you see how they've kind of painted themselves into an unsolvable problem?
Oh, they have. That's what's hilarious. They're eating themselves with their own ideology.
How long do you think that society would last?
No, it's not lasting. We are seeing it in real time that it's not going to last, and it's not lasting.
So there you guys go. I didn't even think about that when I was going through this, but I'm glad we talked through it, because now I have a perfect example to provide to the leftists when they give me the argument that blacks don't have access to XYZ, minorities don't have access to XYZ, marginalized communities don't have access to XYZ, and that's going to be a big thing with COVID. We're already seeing it. Biden's whole administration's talking nothing but racial equity in the vaccine distribution. So you're going to hear this, and when you hear this, if somebody presents this argument to you, now you have an example to show them, hey, look, there's a reason why these businesses aren't there. And we've seen it happen literally in real time over the last year in San Francisco. Yep.
I mean, it was happening in San Francisco long before, but COVID just amped it up and made it much worse.
Yeah, no.
That was, I think that was, if there's one positive thing I can get from this whole COVID experience, is that it definitely sped up the whole process of trying to get people to understand that racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, it's all garbage. It's all made up.
Osa says his Safeway uses black loss prevention officers to prevent the racism claim.
They do. And then, what's even more sad is like the black loss prevention people will be like super like they don't even care if they catch a black person stealing. They're like,
No,
excuse
they don't
me.
do anything anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go to one Safeway that has loss prevention officers who patrol it inside, and then I go to one that doesn't. And the ones who are in the loss prevention officers, they don't care.
Yeah, they don't give a shit.
They don't care about it.
They're like, I'm
just
getting
they're
paid
just-
$17 to stand here and do nothing and look intimidating. They don't do crap. Like my friend was a loss prevention officer, and she said it was really kind of shitty because she was a loss prevention officer at Old Navy. And she said that was the worst because people would steal, like women would use their children to try to steal like $6 t-shirts and like just really cheap clothes. Like,
Oh, yeah.
And they would like bring their kids with their strollers and then put the clothes like underneath the kids and like put in the baskets in
No
the kids'
shame.
strollers. Like
Yeah.
no shame whatsoever. And my friend, she's like my age and she's trying to confront these people that are doing this and they're just like, nah, F you don't know what you're talking about. And she's just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, loss prevention may be one of the most pointless.
It is, and
Positions.
I kind of feel bad for the people that
It's just a
were working
deterrent.
them.
It's a deterrent for the 1% of the would-be thieves who get scared by them.
Commander says Prop 47 at work. I know lots of cops. They knew petty crime was going to skyrocket. Yep.
I don't know what Prop 47 is. Somebody fact check. Drop a quick synopsis in the chat of what Prop 47 is, because I just watched a short documentary from Vice where this disgusting looking lesbian chick with shaved head. She shaved the sides of her head, and then she looked homeless.
Oh no, she didn't look good like me.
But she and she did this documentary on Fresno and the meth epidemic in California, and the first guy that she encounters, literally, he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm a meth dealer. I provide all those guys over there in the tents with the meth. You want to see it?
There's no shame whatsoever.
You want to see my bag of
no
meth?
secrecy.
No." And he pulls out a bag of meth, and he talks about how he already sold most of it. So we're talking like a 1 gallon baggie where it was half full, like a pound or more of meth.
Jesus.
And he's like, I already sold most of it. And he's just holding it out. He's like, hey, you want to see my meth? He pulls it out on camera, doesn't care. And he says specifically, the criminal says, Prop 47 is why I can do this and why all this meth and everything out here is happening. Because if the cops came and they found him with that bag of meth, they would cite him. They would just let him go.
Wow. So he can just have a big ass bag of meth and out
Yeah.
open and steal it out in the open and not
Yep.
get in trouble. Wow.
No,
Okay.
he's just making bank out there.
Lovely. Thanks. Thanks, whoever signed that bill. Did we even vote on that? I don't even remember that freaking prop.
I think it was in before I moved into town.
I think it was in before I started voting, so I was paying attention.
All right, let's
Segway.
yeah, I do want to see a summary of what Prop 47 is, but maybe we'll come back to
We'll
it
come back to
after
that.
this time thing. The Time article.
Okay.
This is the one that everyone. Okay, here we go. Prop 47 was what made limit for theft $950. Okay, so that's what we've been talking about this whole time.
Criminalized everything. Many crimes went from felony to misdemeanor. Yep.
Okay,
So.
yeah.
Okay.
Half full meth bag. Jeremy has a positive attitude. My meth bag is always half full.
Yeah, always half full, never half empty.
This Time article. Did you hear about this Time article? About the shadowy cabals that were controlling the election
I
outcome?
heard
and all
about
that
it.
kind of stuff?
I didn't get a chance to read it. I heard about it
Okay,
though.
so yeah, I want to give my 2 cents on this because everyone's talking about it.
Okay.
And I don't think it is what we think it is.
Okay.
So I watched guys like Tim Pool talk about how this article admitted that there was some kind of shadowy cabal that controlled the outcome of the election, which was, I mean, that statement just in and of itself is taken way out of context, which we'll show you in this article. But secondly, this article is like 8,000 pages long.
Jesus.
I'm definitely not going to go through the whole thing.
Don't read all of it.
I have just a tiny little bits already highlighted that I want
Okay.
to point out because the majority of this article
It's just fluff.
is stuff that we already know.
It's just like stroking.
What this article is, and it's called The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign That Saved the 2020 Election.
Saved it.
from time.com.
Okay.
The title in and of itself definitely draws some attention, right?
Yeah.
The secret history of the shadow campaign that saved 2020 election.
It's not no secret.
To summarize this for the people who don't want to read the 80 million words within this article, it's just giving us details behind what we already knew was happening. We had already come to the conclusion, along with other noteworthy figures, maybe not as noteworthy as us,
Yeah.
but guys like Scott Adams, they were just a little bit, just slightly below us on the noteworthy scale. We've already concluded that the election, there wasn't necessarily a lot of illegal things going on. It was just that the system was so, what's the word I'm looking for here?
I don't think they were prepared as they thought they were.
Oh no, the left was very prepared.
The left was prepared.
It was
but
manipulated.
It was,
like,
yeah.
that's what I was gonna say. Manipulating, not meaning there's anything illegal going on, but meaning that every word they could find an inch
They
to
took it.
maximize, they did it. And what we're talking about, some of the things they list in this article, as far as actions that they took, are things like meeting with social media companies to talk about, censoring for disinformation, which again is just a term that's only used against conservatives. We already talked about how that was happening. We knew that was happening. Would they talk about raising a bunch of money to promote mail-in voting and absentee voting, and they talk about hiring a lot of black, I don't know why they point out the race, but black poll watchers. So they were hiring poll watchers. They're raising money to raise awareness for mail-in voting. They're talking to social media companies, doing all this stuff.
There's just a lot of like very just weird things going on that I don't remember from previous elections.
Well,
that I can remember.
It's all the stuff behind the scenes that you would expect both sides to be participating in.
But it was.
But we're not seeing a lot of that happening from the right.
Yeah, it's mostly.
It seems like the right was mostly just like, oh yeah, there's an election, let's go vote.
Let's be fair.
Yeah.
Let's be fair, guys.
You be fair.
Yeah, you be fair.
Don't pull anything
They
now.
trusted that the Democrats were actually going to be fair.
Meanwhile, the Democrats were planning a year in advance.
They were probably planning like right after he got elected.
Now, I will have to point out, I'm not going to completely take a huge dump on all the conservatives that want to hear what they want to hear out of this. This article is definitely tinted hard against the right. All this stuff is, they try to mention multiple times throughout the article that, oh no, it was a group of bipartisan. It was conservatives and Republicans who advocated for this. They say that 20,000 times throughout the article to try and convince you that it wasn't just all about smashing down the Republicans and smashing Trump's narrative.
Right.
But then they also explicitly mentioned several times throughout the article that it was basically all about Trump and about how they thought he wasn't going to concede and how he was going to rig the election and all this kind of stuff.
So they just took every single little inch that they got.
Yep. So I want to just go through a couple, hiring armies of poll watchers. Exactly. It's not illegal, but it's definitely not, I wouldn't say kosher.
Yeah, there was just a lot of really weird behavior, like on the left, from the left.
To summarize, this is kind of a summary article of really what we're talking about here from the article. For more than a year, a loosely organized coalition of operatives scrambled to shore up America's institutions as they came under simultaneous attack from a remorseless pandemic and an autocratically inclined president. That's just kind of a thesaurus-sized version of saying a dictator.
Yeah, dictator.
Though much of this activity took place on the left, it was separate from the Biden campaign and crossed ideological lines. See, that's what I was talking about, where they try to mention that it wasn't just the left. With crucial contributions by nonpartisan and conservative actors. Yeah, I'm sure. The scenario the shadow campaigners were desperate to stop was not a Trump victory. It was an election so calamitous that no result could be discerned at all. A failure of the central act of democratic self-governance that has been a hallmark of America since its founding. So they claim that it wasn't about stopping a Trump victory. It was about making sure the election
was democratic.
Yeah, which I mean,
we're not a
do you have
we're
any,
not a full democracy.
What was the precedent that they were operating off of in order to assume that there was not going to be a democratic election?
I know, like that's what gets me. They were so worried that we were cheating, that we were going to cheat. The Republicans, the conservatives, the Trumpers were going to cheat. That they went ahead and cheated themselves.
Well, it was really set up in a way that it's really genius. If you want to understand how pointless it is to vote, read through the entire article here and find out for yourself. But what they had done is set up a masterful strategy where if they win, it was all about reinforcing election integrity. It's all about democracy. If they lost, then it was all about Trump rigging the election. It was a win-win either way for them. They had planned it out ahead of time so that no matter what happened, it was going to be a win-win for them. It just so happened that they won the election, quote unquote, and then they didn't have to implement all of the backup plans that they had in place, which they mentioned in this article. And that's one of the things that we'll talk about.
They're like, they call their producer, cancel the aliens that we hired.
Yeah, exactly.
Cancel the alien holograms that we had on standby just in case Trump actually might have like won this.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, Alinsky tactics. Accuse your enemy of what you are doing.
Projection, yeah.
Some call it projection, but it's a specific technique.
Saul Alinsky.
It's massively. This is another portion that I have highlighted here. So it's massively important for the country to understand that it didn't happen accidentally. They're referring to the behind-the-scenes saving of the election. This is the most important part of the entire article, and it hints at their entire motive. Here we go. Ready? The system didn't work magically. Democracy is not self-executing. So the viewpoint of these people who think that they saved the election is that democracy is not self-executing. It requires a lot of manual intervention and a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes that the public is not aware of.
Okay, so it's just pointless.
No, it's basically you're too dumb to understand.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know what actually needs to happen for the election to happen fairly. But we've been working hard. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry.
We've been working hard to make sure it goes through okay.
I mean, I don't want to worry, but I do worry because I worry that you idiots don't know what the hell you're doing. So
No, they definitely know what they're doing. One thing that you will learn from this article if you read it is that they absolutely know what they're doing. They're far more competent than the right as far as
cheating,
no
being degenerate.
what's the word? Fortifying elections. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fortifying is the euphemism we're going to use now.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a big fan of euphemisms, but I'm going to throw it in there now for
Just for them.
Going forward. Anytime I talk about the election. So the article continues on to say that's why the participants, the people who were on this shadowy cabal, want the secret history of the 2020 election told, even though it sounds like a paranoid fever dream. Okay, so this is where all the hype around the article talking about cabals and stuff comes from, and how they misframe. Guys like Tim Pool, they misframe what they're actually saying here. So listen closely. That's why the participants want the secret history of the 2020 election told, even though it sounds like a paranoid fever dream. A well-funded cabal of powerful people ranging across industries and ideologies working together behind the scenes to influence perceptions, change rules and laws, steer media coverage, and control the flow of information. See, so when they say a well-funded cabal of powerful people, they're trying to do it from the perspective of somebody who has quote-unquote paranoid fever dreams about how the election went through. So they're saying this is how this story is going to be imagined in the eyes of people who thought the election was rigged, is that you're going to see this as a well-funded cabal of powerful people. They're not saying this was a well-funded cabal of powerful people, although in some terminologies it is.
It was. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, but it was a well-funded cabal of powerful people that wanted a particular...
cabal is a charged word.
I guess, but
because cabal is that's what the Q uses,
Yeah.
Cabal and all that kind of stuff. You would know better than I do. I don't follow Q stuff.
That's why I kind of consider what happened with this election like very much cabalish, because it was a small, tiny group of people that knew what the hell was going on, and the rest of us are just dumbasses that are just kind of guessing.
Yeah, and we were we were playing that side of it the whole way through, for the most part.
I mean,
at least I was. You were actually legitimately distraught that Trump didn't win. I was like, oh yeah, okay, they really played it well.
I'm still legit distraught that Trump didn't win, because I really am. I'm sorry. Like, there's no freaking way that Joe motherfucking Biden, got more votes than Barack Obama in 2008.
Okay, I'm gonna let you in on a secret. Every single election that we've ever had has been rigged.
I know. I know it has, but it just baffles my mind that, like, I think I'm more upset with, honestly, Americans for not standing. Like, there are Americans that stood up and were like, no, we're not going to accept this. And they're the ones that stormed the Capitol. So, but I'm just more disappointed that people, like, are just accepting of this. So.
Okay. Yeah, I can understand that viewpoint for sure. It definitely, if you were emotionally invested in the Trump win, I can see why
I'm just
it would be.
like I said, I'm just disappointed that more people just didn't
Here's what
want to like look more deeply into it.
Here's how you can turn that into a positive, less attackable viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go up with that viewpoint and just say, Biden got 80 million votes, that's not the right way to go about
Yeah.
it. The right way
I
to go
know.
about it is to say, why don't we have any election transparency?
Yeah.
Because who's going to argue against election transparency?
Nobody.
Are you anti-election transparency?
I mean,
Are you fascist?
yeah. I mean, fascist.
That's
fascist.
what you could.
Yeah.
If somebody tried to oppose you on that, when you say, "Why don't we have any election transparency?" That's where you got to go.
That's a good tactic, Jeremy.
That's the angle that you got to take with it.
That's a good tactic, Jeremy. That's a really good tactic.
But it's okay. You can do the little like emotional,
Well, I am a woman, so
yeah.
that's what I'm
Once
good
you
at.
get over that, once that has kind of died down a little bit, you can pivot to the election transparency line.
I guess I'm just waiting for Trump to just ride in on a freaking tank and be like, I actually won, bitches.
God.
Like, I'm here to stay.
Trust the plan, patriots.
Trust the plan.
Trust the plan.
Trust the plan.
All right. The article continues on to say they were not rigging the election. They were fortifying it.
Oh, okay.
That's right, folks. They weren't rigging it. They were fortifying it. And they believe the public needs to understand the system's fragility in order to ensure that democracy in America endures. Notice they didn't mention anything about this while the election was happening.
Right.
While the election was underway. They didn't want to bring any of this stuff up. They just wanted to make sure that after
their guy won.
After the results came through, they could pivot the story to whatever angle they needed to based on the results and the outcome to paint themselves in a good light. And if you think I'm BSing you on that, I've got a quote from this article that talks exactly about their plan Bs.
Okay, cool.
And that's under the section entitled People Power. I
People
scrolled about
Power.
8,000 lines down,
I was gonna say, yeah, that was quite a scroll.
and we're now in a section called People Power. So,
Oh God.
yeah, no, you know where this is going.
I already know where this
You
is
guys
going.
all know where this is going. And this is going to prove one of my points too that I've made the entire year. So I get justification for myself,
Cool,
victory,
cool.
personal victory here too. People Power. The racial justice uprising sparked by George Floyd's killing in May was not primarily a political movement. The organizers who helped lead it wanted to harness its momentum for the election without allowing it to be co-opted by politicians.
Oh, okay. So
You hear that?
they're just admitting that they were campaigning and making money for Joe Biden, just not directly for him.
What have I been saying all year? Antifa and BLM,
They've been raising money for him.
well, not just that, but they were the proxies for voter enthusiasm
for Joe
on
Biden.
the left. They were the ones generating the energy for voting for Democrats.
That's not the energy I
Go
wanted.
look, go back and look at any of the podcasts we've done. I've said it
Yeah,
multiple
you
times.
have. Yeah.
They've admitted it right here. I'm going to claim victory on that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's now vindicated. I can claim the victory on that
You
one.
definitely can.
But they say specifically, it wasn't a political movement, but they wanted to harness its momentum for the election, for a political reason.
Without it
So-
being co-opted by a politician.
So when we're talking about rigging versus manipulation, what we're talking about here is where there's no pressure on BLM from the media throughout the entire year because they know that they are the proxy for Democratic votership.
yeah.
There's no pressure against them from the law enforcement. There's no pressure against them from any social media outlets. There's no pressure against them from anything on the left. So they ease up off of BLM because they've all know, because they were talking about it behind the scenes. Like we said, these guys were talking with social media. They were talking with everybody.
Oh yeah.
The cabal, quote unquote, was already had this in place. They were saying, look, let's let this BLM thing play out because we all know we can use this energy for the election.
Yeah.
Let's not cover it too harshly in the media,
Yeah.
even though we have video footage of black people beating old white shop owners
Yep.
and burning stores and every other unimaginable form
Burning
of
car
violence
lots.
you can imagine. Let's not cover that. And if we do, we'll cover it in a good light.
And blame it
Light-
on white.
su-
Blame it
such-
on white people. And that's always a good out.
Such as, this is a peaceful protest. Remember that? The guy from CNN,
Oh, yeah.
MSNBC, in the background, the building was on fire, and he said, this is a peaceful protest. That's what this kind of stuff does right here. So it wasn't rigging.
It was just
It
manipulation.
was just straight up manipulation all throughout the year of every possible variable in order to end up in a result that we got.
You know what? I'm just going to let the Democrats have this one because they clearly out-cheated the Republicans.
No, that's what I'm saying. They were
Let 'em have it.
This was a masterful execution of this strategy.
Let 'em have it.
They deserved it.
Burn the country to the ground. Let them have it. It's fine. It's fine. Like, you guys can have it. Burn the country to the ground. All of those conservatives and conservative-leaning people were going to, like, relocate to Alaska where y'all won't dare to venture. They won't dare to go to Alaska or anywhere.
They earned it.
Yeah, they earned it.
Okay,
Here,
so they
y'all
ma-
can have the mainland. It's fine.
Well, the lack of enthusiasm for Joe Biden, Joe Biden was getting 6 people at his rallies and stuff like that. He was awful. He's an awful candidate. He's on the verge of death. Let's be honest.
And none of them wanted him either.
So they had to use all these other tactics to get people to the polls.
Just like
And-
straight, almost intimidation, it feels like.
Oh, it's funny you mentioned intimidation
Yeah.
because they mentioned that in the article.
I'm just like smart or
You're
something.
like a psychic segue.
I got that ESPN.
ESPN.
I got that ESPN.
Oh, man. We got comments that when we laugh into the mics, it hurts their ears.
Oh,
So when we
my
laugh,
God.
we have to
My bad.
we have to do this.
Uh-huh.
Okay, the article continues on to say, the summer uprising has shown that people power could have a massive impact. Oh, so
Okay.
they understood the power of people power. Activists began preparing to reprise the demonstrations if Trump tried to steal the election. Quote, Americans plan widespread protests if Trump interferes with the election, unquote, Reuters reported in October. One of many such stories. The media was pumping the threat of mass uprising if Trump won. Another way, again, not rigging, just straight up manipulation.
Yeah.
Pumping fear into shop owners. Everything was boarded up in at least, I know my city.
Yeah.
Everything was boarded up pretty much the entire year
It was, yeah.
because of fear of leftist violence, not because of fear of Proud Boys.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
there were probably the few people that were afraid of Proud Boys, but the Proud
They
Boys,
were woefully misguided.
yeah, you have more reason to fear Black Lives Matter, my friends. Like, you don't have any, like, I've talked to a few Proud Boys. Like, they're
Okay.
they're fine.
All right, check this out. They go on to talk about how they have rioters on call. Yeah, no, you looked a little bit confused there for a 2nd. I'm dead serious.
Riders on
What,
call.
remember what you said? No, literally, depending on the outcome of the election, they were ready to deploy rioters.
Oh, rioters. I thought you said writers.
No, they don't have any of those.
Yeah, I was gonna say according to this
They
article,
should get
not-
some writers.
They should get some decent writers.
Okay, this is a paragraph that I have highlighted from the article. The conversation that followed was a difficult one, talking about how disinformation and basically on election night, as the results were coming in and it looked like Trump was doing well, they started to panic. And they admitted they were panicking, which kind of gives away that they weren't really interested in a bipartisan outcome. They were interested in a Democratic win. But the conversation that followed was a difficult one, led by activists charged with the protest strategy. The protest strategy was in the back pocket the whole time. Okay, quote, we wanted to be mindful of when was the right time to call for moving masses of people into the street.
Oh yeah, they were planning it. No matter who won, they were planning something.
As much as they were eager to mount a show of strength, mobilizing immediately could backfire and put people at risk. Protests that devolved into violent clashes would give Trump a pretext to send in federal agents or troops, as he had over the summer. And rather than elevate Trump's complaints by continuing to fight him, the alliance wanted to send the message that the people had spoken. Guys, they had rioters on speed dial ready
to go.
If you read the article, they were organizing across the country. They were ready to send one text message that would go out across the country,
And people would flock.
and then buildings would burn. That was what they had ready to go.
Wow, that's hell of a reason to vote for Joe Biden, don't you think? That sounds like a great reason.
No, the pumping the fear based off of the rioting and the violence was probably their major strategy throughout the
know,
year.
right?
And you could see the physical indications of that by seeing the boarded up buildings. So, I mean, that was the last highlighted section of the article that I had, but they continue on to talk about absolutely absurd things, such as what you're seeing right here, the picture in Detroit when they blocked the windows and they basically said, oh, look at all these pro-Trump poll watchers trying to watch what we're doing in the polls. and we never let them in. So
It's like, don't they have a right to observe what's going on?
yeah, and well, also boasting about how they hired basically everybody involved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't.
So again, it's not. There's nothing technically illegal happening,
but
but they were dominating every variable involved.
And then they post these pictures and these videos and these things onto the social media platform, bragging about it, and they don't get banned. But if a conservative will reshare that video, that conservative will get their shit taken down or get banned or whatever.
Well, that's why. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's the BS tell. We talk about BS tells here a lot, right? You want to be able to tell why what you're reading is BS. And the BS tell for this is if you do a Control F, which is a hotkey for search in your browser, for the word Russia, it doesn't occur anywhere in the entire article, which is like 18 million words long. So when they say they're concerned about disinformation and election rigging and false narratives and things like that, and they don't bring up how we talked about Russia stealing the election for the last 4 years straight, they don't mention that at all.
Yeah.
Like, hey, there's a bit of a precedent here for saying that elections were stolen or rigged because of Mo Russia conspiracy theory.
Mo Russia.
Not one mention.
Yeah, of course not.
If they were truly bipartisan, they would have said, well, based on the last 4 years of everyone saying the word Russia 10 billion times per second on every news channel known to man, we're a little concerned about this information in this election. No. All the disinformation they were concerned about was the pro-Trump stuff and how mail-in ballots weren't secure and all that kind of stuff.
Well, we know who Russia has in their pockets.
Yeah, right.
We know who
and China.
Yeah, Russia and China. So if you don't see Russia in the article and you don't see China in the article, you know it's bogus, or there's a BS tell.
Not sure says anybody want to buy a podium. I heard that podium sold for like 80 grand. How many of the XL pipeline union workers voted for Biden?
If they were smart, none of them. But
well, their union probably made them vote for Biden.
Maybe. Probably, if you're in a union, they definitely kind of strong arm you.
Yeah, Osis brings up another good point, that the people who we're talking about in this article, the shadowy cabal, they had private dinners with Zuckerberg and Dorsey, who ran Facebook and Twitter, and pumped $300 million into those efforts. Yeah, so the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation, or whatever it is, that Zuck's, his philanthropy division, they pumped like $300 million into this group.
Wow.
They also raised millions and millions and millions of dollars from other sources as well. So,
I mean, that Facebook life is sure paying off, I guess.
Well, it's interesting because the left hates Facebook, but they were using Facebook in this election cycle as well at the same time. But I guess there are shadowy cabals who supersede any kind of the low-level emotional arguments that happen against Facebook that you normally see in the news media. But the moral of the story, and I think the final word from me on this particular article and this whole narrative, is that it's largely a nothing burger.
Oh, totally.
There's nothing in this article that we didn't already know was happening. I mean, they gave us some specifics, but we knew they were gaming every variable all along the way. You could tell they were doing this because we're talking about the same party that rigged Bernie Sanders out of 2 primaries.
Yes, they did.
They've been rigging their own stuff for years.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't have to. It's not a far-fetched claim to say they were fortifying. Sorry, I used the word rigging. YouTube, please don't ban me for saying that. I meant fortifying.
Okay.
I meant fortifying. They fortified Bernie out of the primary.
Yeah, they fortified Hillary to get the primary nomination in 2016, and they fortified Joe Biden to get the primary nomination in 2020.
There's a lot of fortifying happening.
There's a lot of fortification going on in the Democratic Party, and if y'all are still voting for them, I'm sorry, but you guys are just not very smart.
Now,
or even Republicans nowadays too. So
the reason
both suck now.
Yeah, no. If you vote in general, after you
if
hear
you vote
something
in
like
general
that,
now.
what do you expect? I bring that article up because I want you to lose trust in the system. I want you to feel the impetus to seek out, create, or join a separate system, because this system is not feasible for. They said it in the article. They said it themselves. Okay, this is in Time magazine, one of the most prominent magazines of all time. They admit it straight up in blank text, or
right
not,
there in front of you to
not blank
read.
text, but
Blank
in
text.
straight text, right there, democracy doesn't operate on its own. It needs intervention. They said that.
Yeah, they did.
Not me. I didn't have to editorialize or hyperbolize that at all.
It's
They said
from
that.
their own mouths.
Do you want to participate in a system that requires intervention from people that you have no idea what they're doing?
Yeah. Well, they don't even know what they're doing either. So.
No, the people who are doing the intervention, they absolutely knew what they're
Oh,
doing.
they know what they're doing when it comes to intervention, but the thing that's really sad about them is they're going to intervene, think that they need to fix and save democracy, but as soon as they get the power to be able to fix democracy, they don't know what the hell like the next step is. They really don't. They don't have like any clear-cut plan about how they want to fix democracy once they actually like get the power to be able to do
fixing
it.
democracy is just a false pretense.
I know
They don't give a shit about
I
democracy.
know they don't. It's a power thing, and I get that, but that's the point I'm trying to make. There's a lot of people in there that are in on it, thinking like they're trying to make things better, trying to improve things, but it's they're pawns in the game for these.
So you're saying there's some unwilling participants in a deeper kind of psychological game going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Yeah, no,
think
that's
so.
definitely true. I mean, it's likely what we're talking about here is a group of 20 people who are very rich, who are organizing and orchestrating all this stuff behind the scenes.
And then
And then the people who they were orchestrating were acting on good faith.
Yeah, good faith.
They were like,
and
oh, yeah.
ignorance, whatever you want to call it. You know,
Yeah.
they just didn't. They had no idea.
Right.
I think a lot of people had the best intentions, especially with the way that the media hyped up this election and made it out to be like, oh, it's going to be this, fallout, whoever wins. So I think both people on both camps were very much invested. That's why you had the poll watchers on Trump's side that were so like hell-bent on being there observing, and then you had the poll watchers on Biden's side that were told not to like let the Trumpers see anything. So there was just a lot of, on both sides, there was just a lot of weirdness going on. So
Well, like I said, they set this up in a manner that was win-win for them. If Biden won, they can do this, exactly what they're doing, which is equivalent to a victory lap,
Yep.
which is also equivalent, some would say, to the boastful thief gloating about his successes on social media,
Yep.
like flashing the stacks of cash because he wants to get credit for what he did. But yeah, it was a win-win setup either way for them, and they knew from the start. Like I said, they started this over a year ago, guys. Okay, this has all been. They did what's called red teaming, which in the cybersecurity world means you are acting as the attacker, you're acting as the hacker, trying to break into a system, finding the vulnerabilities, finding the weaknesses by simulating attacks. They talked about in the article how they were red teaming the whole entire situation from start to finish. So they knew every potential outcome, every potential variable, and what the response would be for each one of those. And if that's what's required to win an election, I'll mention the last thing that I want to mention about this article is that there is no, as of yet, talk about any kind of increasing of election transparency.
well,
Nobody on the left is talking about increasing.
not.
So the angle that they could have taken with this article and all these people claiming victory over guiding the election in the proper outcome, which of course we all knew was that they wanted Biden to win, they could have actually just been talking legitimately about election transparency. They don't mention anything about voter machines or looking at voter records, seeing who voted, whatever other kind of fraud related claims there were.
Yeah.
They completely leave all that out. They leave out all of the concerns of the American citizens.
Yeah.
If you were bipartisan and you were pro-democracy, you would acknowledge that there are 70 million plus Americans in this country right now who don't think that the elections are legitimate.
Yeah.
And you would want to offer them some kind of reassurance. And the way you provide solid reassurance, the same way that you provide a valid apology to someone, is not just by saying sorry. You take action. You have to
And you acknowledge what you did,
right.
or you acknowledge that there was a problem or something
Right. So
happened.
we're seeing the people who are calling for unity continue on like nothing happened.
Yeah.
Not offer any consolation.
Yep.
Not offer any kind of.
Don't even acknowledge
promises
that it was fortified.
Yeah. No. Even after this article,
They won't even admit it. They're like, no, democracy spoke.
Right. No. You're exactly right. So
That's willful
That's
ignorance.
another BS tell is that they don't give a shit about half the country not trusting the election system because they're not
No.
taking any action to increase transparency.
They're not like gonna do away with the voting machines or the mail-in ballots and like just go back to the old school way of like actually having to go and physically vote. They're gonna just keep pushing for the mail-in ballots and the voting machines and all that crap for the next
So
100 years.
if you don't see any efforts towards increased election transparency over the next 3 years, do you think the election for 2024 is going to be any better than what you participated in this year?
I don't think so.
And then if the answer is no, are you even going to vote? That's the question for chat.
Yeah.
If there's no push for any kind of election transparency and no actual action taken towards that in the next 3 years, why would anyone vote?
Yeah, I mean, I understand why my family, because most of my family, they're all Jehovah's Witnesses, and they don't take part in the elections anyways. And now that I've like kind of gotten into it, I'm like, no wonder they don't freaking take part, because this is like life draining. This is like soul sucking, and all this time that people spend worshiping politicians and these elected officials, like this is the way my grandparents justify it. The time that all these people are spending worshiping these people can be spent learning about Jehovah and learning about God and getting closer to Him. So they'd rather spend their time getting closer to God than getting closer to politicians.
They are smart.
They're smart.
Because that's what this whole thing is meant to be. I'm not emotionally moved one direction or the other by reading this article and learning the outcomes of this. I don't care.
Yeah, you don't give a crap.
Because I am busy working on my own endeavors, working on my own life. But this article is a trap for guys like Tim Pool who freak out. Oh, there's a cabal. Bro,
No, calm down.
calm down first of all.
Tim.
But there's always been a cabal
Yeah.
all the time. They just come out and finally said it now.
Yeah, they're finally admitting it.
The fortifying has always been happening. Your vote never really mattered. Somebody's honking nonstop outside,
Right.
and that's just, we live in the mutant capital
Yeah,
of
there's
the
tons
world.
of mutants.
So
They'll honk
that's
horns for no damn reason.
just one of the things that happens.
Or there'll be like a bunch of lowriders that drive by. That's kind of cool sometimes.
I don't think the chat can hear that, but maybe we can get like an outside cam. and see.
Get a glimpse of the Korean lady with her spatula.
Chat doesn't know about the Korean lady.
Yeah, they don't know about her.
Yeah, so you see, guys, why I had to kind of point out Tim Pool, because he got really animated about that. And I think I don't know if he legitimately thought that was a big deal or if he's just using that as clickbait. And most of the other conservative outlets are also using that as kind of clickbait. Did they read the article? Did they read the whole thing like I did from start to finish and really understand what was happening?
Yeah.
And that we didn't learn anything new? I think they're mostly using it as clickbait. So this is a warning for you guys. I do consume art outlets like Tim Pool. But you got to be careful, okay?
Yes.
Don't get emotionally invested on stuff like that, because they will try to emotionally manipulate you just like that. And we contrast my evaluation of this article to guys like Tim Pool, who has, the reason why I keep bringing it up is because he's probably the largest centrist / moderate channel on YouTube. He pulls 50,000 live viewers easily every time. So I'm using him as, the barometer for...
He's a pretty popular guy.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I know who he is, so that's pretty popular.
Tim seems a few beers away from Alex. Yeah, a lot of testosterone away from Alex. Not enough testosterone there in Timmy, I don't think.
Not sure. In the chat says, shadow conspiracists strengthened free and fair elections according to Time magazine. Is that a weird position to hold? I think I would agree. That's why I was kind of a little perturbed by this article, because they're just straight up admitting, like, yeah, we kind of, there's a little bit of a seedy affair going on here, but
this is going to be unpopular, but I do agree with their usage of the word fortification.
Yeah.
Because fortification, think about it, in your terms, when you're partisan, you're going to fortify the election by doing what? Strengthening whatever's going to be best for your side.
Yeah.
And that's what they did.
Yeah, that's what they did.
That's what they did.
But they kind of, that's what they did, and that's what makes them smart. But it's just, I guess they just did it dirty, and like kind of half-assed and Chinese-like. So I guess that's why I'm like...
It wasn't dirty, though. It was actually pretty clean.
I guess.
You got to read the whole thing.
I'll read it. I'll read it later.
I'm telling you, read the whole thing.
I'll read it later when I go home.
Yeah, no, read the whole thing if you really want to suck down that red pill. Like, a game has to acknowledge game, guys, all right? I acknowledge that was a masterful execution.
It was.
They did excellent. And this is another recurring narrative that we talk about here. The left is much better at organizing and community stuff and all that kind of stuff. So outperformed the Republicans on this one, and I think there was an element of complacency on the Republican side where they were just like, yeah, we got this momentum from Trump and Trump, all that kind of stuff, MAGA, whatnot. They were hoping on riding off that energy, and they weren't doing all the behind the scenes stuff that they should have been doing like the left was. Yeah. So they got complacent.
Yeah, that's true. They did get a little fat, like Chris Christie there.
But I mean, he still got 70 million votes.
I know.
So I mean, imagine if they made an effort to fortify. Imagine if the conservatives were fortifying as hard as the left was.
Right? If they played just as dirty as the left.
They would have dominated.
They definitely would have dominated. But the conservatives were not willing to get their hands as dirty as the Democrats were.
That might be it.
They weren't willing to dive headfirst into the barrel of shit like the Democrats were.
Well, also, there was an inherent negative bias against them because they weren't going to be able to work with social media companies as easily as the left was. You know what I mean? So the left did have an inherent advantage in that.
Well, also too, like the left is part of like Joe Biden has Black Lives Matter and all that stuff, and of course these social media companies that are all SJW or anti-white and SJWs are going to be like, yeah, of course we're going to support the platform for Black Lives Matter. Hell yeah, because Black lives do matter. We're not racist here.
There's no such thing as unelected global elites making globally societal altering decisions behind closed doors. You guys are practically flat earthers. Yes. Correct. Thank you for pointing that out. I am a flat earther, just about.
Pretty much.
Definitely nothing shadowy happening behind doors.
Yeah, and there's no super filthy, mega wealthy people that control a lot of things that you don't even understand. There's none of that going on. Yep. We'd rather live in your world, not sure.
It only annoys me because they're rubbing our noses in it. Yeah,
that's really what it is.
Well, I mean, so if there's not a response to this in 2024, then you deserve, all the conservatives and Republicans out there deserve everything that you get.
What I think is, what's worse is, they're the ones that took to go back to like rubbing our faces in it. When I think of that, I think of like a dog getting rubbing your dog's face in their poo when they make a poo. Mm-hmm. What's worse is, like, we can make that analogous to this. They're the ones that took the poo and they're rubbing our faces in their poo. That's what makes it worse. That's what makes it the worst is that they're the ones that took the poo and they're rubbing our faces in their mess and their poo.
Well, see, the reason it's so masterful is because they convinced us that it's our poo.
Yeah, and they convinced us and like gaslighted us to believe that we did it.
Yeah, because Trump was going to rig the election and Trump wasn't going to leave office and Trump was going to have his followers storm the Capitol and Trump. They made us believe through the media coverage and the manipulation that it was all Trump's fault and that all this was warranted because of what Trump was going to do.
Yeah, they rubbed our face. They like made us like roll in it, convinced us to roll in it.
That's a good point.
Stalking Horse says on a street in San Francisco. So you know that there's gone herpesiphilates on that poo.
They made us roll in our own feces in San Francisco. The stream has come full circle at this point. Let's move on to the 9/11 playbook. This is a theme we've talked about as well, recurring on this stream, where I talked about it before the Biden election happened. We are going to see some kind of war happening. Mm-hmm. And right now, I have to announce a modification in my viewpoint. I don't think this war is going to be foreign.
It's going to be internal.
It's going to be domestic.
Okay.
And we're seeing more and more indications of that. One of the first, we've seen blatant indications of that for anyone who's paying any remote level of attention. So the insurrection, quote unquote, on the Capitol warranted a lot of law enforcement response. Mm-hmm. One of those responses involved Bank of America handing over customer records to law enforcement.
Ooh.
Unknowing to the customers.
That's a little scary.
It's a little scary. Yeah. So before we go into this article, just remember that if you are pro-transparent elections, if you're pro-Trump, if you're conservative, if you're pro-rationality, pro-logic, pro-any reasonable viewpoint in the world, you are the target. Mm-hmm. You're the ones that are going to be the victim of Bank of America handing out records and you're going to be the ones who Airbnb searches and cancels your account. You're going to be the one who gets booted off Twitter, all that kind of stuff. This is just a continuation of what we've already seen
Yes.
in terms of who's being targeted for censorship and whatnot. This is an article from the New York Post. It says, security experts blast Bank of America for helping feds in Capitol riot probe.
Okay.
From today.
Today, hot off the
Because
take.
we always do hot off the press coverage for you here on the Weekly Narrative. By the way, guys, let's get that engagement up. I'm only seeing a handful of likes on the video.
Yep,
We're about midway through the stream here. We need some engagement on there.
we need a few more likes.
Yep, get the likes up.
Let your friends know.
If you guys aren't following us already, weeklynarrative.locals.com for the private community for when we do get banned off of YouTube. You
It's
can follow
happening
us.
any day.
You can follow us there.
Any day now, they're coming after us.
The logic coming out of this channel, the rationality is way too high for them to handle. Security experts, including the NYPD's former top cop, ripped Bank of America for reportedly handing over customer data to the feds probing the Capitol riots, warning Saturday of a, quote, phishing expedition that was a chilling in its overreach.
Yeah, a little bit.
The bank handed over financial data of 211 clients who happened to use credit and debit cards for lodging, food, and other purchases in Washington in the days before and after the January 6th siege, Fox News' Tucker Carlson reported. So what happened here, just to briefly give a synopsis for those who aren't aware, the feds went to Bank of America and said, here's a list of criteria. Give me anyone who meets these criteria. And those criteria were things like made financial transactions in Washington, purchased lodging
Yeah.
in Washington, within, I think there was a large radius around Washington. So like a 100-mile radius within Washington. One of the criteria was visited or purchased anything from what could potentially be considered a weapons store,
Oh, gosh.
things like that. So what they were trying to do was basically find someone who went to Washington, rented a hotel, purchased a fully automatic machine gun, semi-auto nuke launcher,
Oh, okay.
and then went to the Capitol riot.
They sell those to the public?
No, it's a real thing.
Oh, okay.
Yep, definitely.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, you can just you use your Bank of America credit card and buy one. You get 10% off if you sign up for a Bank of America credit card to buy your semi-automatic, full automatic nuke launcher.
Semi-full automatic.
Semi-full auto.
Semi-full
assault-
automatic assault
no,
nuke
here-
launcher.
Semi-full auto assault nuke launcher. That's what they
That's a
would call
good
it.
one.
Oh, but so they sent this ridiculous criteria list, and 211 people met that list of criteria.
Okay.
So they continued on, and they actually only physically interviewed. So the FBI, or whoever it was, the feds, called in and interviewed one of those people.
Wow.
Can you imagine getting a call? You're like, hey, hi, this is Agent Louis from the
How'd you get
FBI.
my freaking phone number?
We're undergoing an investigation on Capitol insurrection here, and we got some information leading to
You being there.
information saying that you were in the area of the DC area, and you purchased a weapon and also rented a hotel. We want to talk to you
That's sick.
with no pre-warning from the bank. Bank
Yeah.
of America didn't say, hey, we have an inquiry from the feds.
Right?
We're going to be providing some data.
That's kind of
Nothing.
That's kind of sick. Like,
So the rest of this article basically just kind of takes on the perspective of the security officer who previously worked with the NYPD, saying that, that was bad, which
you think?
I would generally agree with.
I would generally agree with that too. Thank you for stating the obvious.
This former officer said that during his time with the NYPD, the department did not seek information about suspects from financial institutions, in particular during terror probes. Oh, sorry. The NYPD did seek information about suspects from financial institutions, in particular during terror probes. And this is why this article falls under our 9/11 playbook segment.
Yeah.
Because in the 9/11 playbook, the original recipients of the 9/11 playbook were who? The Arab terrorists.
Yeah, the Arabs.
Now it's domestic white people, domestic Trump supporters.
Flip the script.
You are receiving the same level of scrutiny and law enforcement action that previously had only been reserved for radical Islamic terrorists in our country.
We're using that method on our own people
The
now.
9/11 playbook
Thanks.
has been reopened.
Thanks, Obama.
The distinction, he noted, was that the department always had a specific suspect in mind when it sought the data, said Carrick, who tweeted, quote, move over Russia, China, and Venezuela. Yeah, so kind of making the argument that we're moving towards a communist, fascistic form of government here by just casting a giant net, kind of saying that it's unprecedented for a federal agency to go to a financial institution and say, give me a list of everyone who meets these criteria,
Right.
instead of give me this person's financial records. And when you're saying give me this person's financial records, it's because you have
reason.
He's a suspect.
You have really good reason to need the financial records. Don't you have to have a warrant in order to get people's financial records?
I work with, and I know guys who were FBI special agents in cybersecurity, and the scrutiny level to do this kind of action is so incredibly high that if any step of the way there's some misstep or something that could be
Scrutinized?
yeah, then it doesn't go through. They won't be able to request. So the fact that this just goes through and says cast a giant wide net, say give me everything that meets this criteria, is to some degree unprecedented.
I think that's a very dangerous precedent to set. Like
the 9/11 playbook, folks.
Well, I mean, yeah, when they say step aside China and Venezuela and Russia, yeah, you're right, because
that sounds like something
that's
that would
something
happen.
that they would do. Yeah,
that sounds like something that would happen in China or Russia. They're just like, oh, there was a protest in Hong Kong, and the Chinese banks handed over all the financial records of anyone who was in Hong Kong on that day.
Right?
That's what we're talking about. No hyperbole, no exaggeration. That's what's happening here. And you, if you're a white Trump supporter, conservative, or no, if you're white, or even if you just don't support the leftist agenda in general, you are the target.
Yeah.
If you're not enthusiastically supporting the leftist agenda, you are the target.
Yeah, I know quite a few prominent conservative influencers on social media have been questioned by the FBI just for simply being at the Capitol. They weren't even there to like riot or do this.
Really?
Yeah, they were like Bryson Gray, the rapper. The FBI straight up pulled up to his house to talk to him because he performed at that event.
Jesus.
Yeah, and he's like, I just performed. I didn't tell them to go and riot and
9/11 playbook, people.
yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah, it's is it really shocking though? Because we made the call that there was going to be some kind of war. The only shocking thing about it is that it looks like it's going to be a domestic war.
Yeah, it's going to be a domestic war, and then once the domestic war is over, then China's going to come in and swoop everything up. So I forget which interview I saw where they were, I don't know who they were talking to, but they were like, you think that when the Chinese invade and the communists come in and they're going to look at you and go, oh, you're black, you're safe. No, that's not what's going to happen, folks. The Chinese are going to come in and the Russians and the communists are going to come in and just be like, you're American, you hold American ideology, you hold Western values, you're out. Bye-bye. That's all they're going to do. They don't care what your skin color is.
Yeah, no, it's true. There's a great point in chat, too, that mentions the Steele dossier, which was the precedent on which the whole Russian election or Russian fraud baloney story was based off of. Basically pointing out that if you know the Steele dossier story, you know the prerequisites for politically motivated warrants is not very high, which is true.
Yeah.
So now, not only do you live in a country where the elections are fortified behind the scenes for your own good, but you live in a country where we can investigate and paint people as the devil for literally no reason at all. No substantiable reason. Such as the Steele dossier.
Commander says Chinese don't need to invade. We're going to welcome them with open arms. You're right. That's true. They are.
So
I'm not. I'm going to tell them to get the fuck out.
How are we going to handle these domestic terrorists? That's what I want to know.
Well, the leftists would say we need to put them in re-education camps.
I think that's a little too passive. That's a little too soft.
A little too soft for them?
Yeah.
What do you suggest?
I would suggest drone strikes.
Oh, just like put them all in one spot and just drone strike them, or just
when they're going to the grocery store,
just get them.
just strike them. Yeah.
Just
No.
drop a
Well, I'm not
bomb.
alone in this. I had to admit that's not an original idea. I got this idea from MSNBC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a host on MSNBC, Nicole Wallace, who
Cool.
suggests or at least infers or implies, I don't know what the wait implies that potentially drone strikes could be a solution to terrorism.
Oh, okay.
It just so happens in this case that terrorism is domestic.
Oh, yeah.
So let's listen to this.
By domestic, they mean white.
Yeah, let's listen to this minute-long clip here of Nicole Wallace from MSNBC. You may have seen this already, but we're gonna go through it for those who haven't.
And released to all law enforcement earlier this week that there is, until the end of April, a persistent threat of domestic extremism, domestic terrorism carried out in the ideology and around this belief that the election was fraudulent, that the COVID restrictions are unnecessary. All of those ideologies pushed by Donald Trump. But my question for you is around incitement. We had a policy, and it was very controversial. It was carried out under the Bush years and under the Obama years, of attacking terrorism at its root, of going after and killing, and in the case of Amr al-Awlaki, an American, a Yemeni American, with a drone strike for the crime of inciting violence, inciting terrorism. Mitch McConnell was in the Senate then. He was in the Senate after 9/11 too. How does Mitch McConnell, who understands that the way you root out terrorism is to take on, in the case of Islamic terrorism, kill those who incite it, how does he not vote to convict someone that he said on the floor of the Senate incited an insurrection?
Yeah. So there you go.
I'm just gonna drone strike people that we disagree with.
We're gonna draw some parallels, because we want unity and because we want to bring the country together and we want to reassure the 70 million Americans who voted that this is a fair system, that we're going to be assessing your situation the same way we assessed the terrorists under Obama, and that's by killing the source.
Sounds good.
We have to kill the source. Now, all of the narratives that we've heard in the last month, at least, maybe longer, have all been about what? Domestic terrorists, domestic white Trump-supporting terrorists. Not necessarily white, but just Trump supporters. I mean, they kind of imply white, but that's the target.
Yep.
I've been waiting because I've said since before, I said if Biden got elected, I told you guys I moved all my stock into Raytheon and Lockheed because I was waiting for the war. And
Yep.
if there's going to be a war, I'm going to at least profit off of it. I'm not just going to let people die for no reason. I need to make some money off it.
Need to make some damn money.
Because there was going to be a war. There has to be a war. And it's looking more and more like that's going to be a domestic war
It's gonna
now.
be another civil war, folks.
But let's be honest. Drone strikes, it's kind of inefficient.
A little bit.
And there's a lot of collateral damage.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, if they drone strike me, they're going to kill at least 30 other people.
yeah. Well, yeah, it would take out quite a few.
It's a bad ratio.
Yeah, it is.
It really depends on how valuable they think I am. If I'm a VIP, if I'm like the ace of spades in the terrorism deck, then I'll take it.
They'll go after Nick Fuentes or what's his name, Richard Spencer. That's who they'll drone strike.
Richard Spicer.
Richard Spicer.
Yeah.
I thought it was. I don't know the guy's
No,
name.
yeah, Richard Spencer. Yeah.
Spicer Spencer. I know it's too many Richards.
Let's see here.
I'm gonna grab a drink real quick.
Russians are tough people. They single-handedly defeated their Hitler, not the U.S. or U.K. I just think this is interesting because it's a continuation of the 9/11 playbook. It's almost as if they're running the 9/11 playbook, but they're not exactly sure who to apply it to. It's just the most pertinent person to apply it to at the moment happens to be the quote-unquote domestic white terrorists. So unless there's some kind of major foreign conflict that starts happening, I would say that a lot of the law enforcement efforts, especially FBI, CIA, stuff like that, they're going to be focused on these Trump supporters. We've seen the Proud Boys be labeled as terrorists in Canada, which is probably closely to follow sometimes here in America. For I don't even know why. I don't know why. How could they be labeled as terrorists?
I don't know.
We have to. The point is, we have to have an enemy.
Yeah.
Maybe they feel like what the Taliban felt like way back then. They're like, "What? We are not the enemy. And then they start getting, their caves and the mountainsides blown apart and stuff like that. So it's like, where is this gonna go? That's my question.
It's kind of a
That's
weird.
the
It's a
question.
weird phenomenon when you draw parallels of terrorists that attacked America to Democrats who are running America now.
Well, it's kind of like the people who are helping the Taliban, like the innocent villagers who are helping the Taliban in Afghanistan,
Yeah.
getting drone striked. That's basically what's happening here. I mean, on a moral scale, it's the same level of depravity
Yeah.
that's happening, but it's in, as long as we can market it in a way that's it's good for America. The ironic thing about it is that the leftists love it.
Oh,
The people who are supposed to be anti-war,
they
world
love
peace,
war.
all this kind of stuff, they just can't wait. I mean, this was from
They
MSNBC.
I think deep down they wanted Trump to win so that way they could have a reason to physically go to war. Because if you look at some of these Antifa little weirdos, they are all like, they're not all of them, but a lot of them are like, they got weapons, they got brass knuckles, like they want to, some of them look like they want to fight, like they got fight in them.
Well, they're going to still do that regardless of Trump being in office.
But I think
mean,
like
they were just out in New York today bashing buildings and stealing stuff. They were looting yesterday.
I think like deep down they kind of wanted him to win so that way they could have a good reason to go out and punch people with MAGA hats.
You mean the media companies?
Yeah, media companies and like Antifa and all. We said this a few weeks ago about how the
Well,
media.
the media companies absolutely wanted Trump to win.
I think
because
they
their revenue is going to be completely blown apart for the next 4 years.
they were like working so hard against him when he's been their cash crop for the last 4 years. Like they're idiots. The media companies are dumbasses.
Well, it's not about what the media companies want. It's what the shadowy cabals in the
shadowy
rooms who are smoking their cigars was what they want.
The Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Vanderbilts.
Wonder if you get a pass if you're white, Muslim, conservative, small in stature, trans, and rich. Yeah, what we need to do is figure out the criteria by which you get drone striked.
You
What if
forgot a label in there. You got to be trans and a lesbian.
What if I identify as, disabled or transgender or something like that? If I get drone striked, was that going to be transphobic?
Yes. I mean, you could make it transphobic. Be like, he identified as a woman before on his deathbed.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because, it's funny that I mentioned it as kind of a subversive segue because we now have we have a video actually.
Oh, a video.
Of Ibram Kendi. You guys know who Ibram Kendi is? Ibram Kendi is the modern day Joseph Goebbels for black propaganda.
Okay.
He's the guy who wrote How to Be an Anti-Racist.
Oh, that
he
guy.
He also authored How to Be, Anti-Racist Baby.
Oh, that fucker. Oh
that guy. Yeah,
that guy.
He's been featured on, Oprah and every other. I think he's been consulted for the 1619 Project
I can't stand those fucking books.
with Ida Bay Wells.
I can't stand those books.
He came out, and there's a video of him on a Zoom call of a meeting that he was having, basically saying that his daughter said that she thought he was a boy or that she was transgender.
Okay.
And his response was that he was horrified by that.
Well, good.
Well, no, that's the irony of it, is that that's the natural response. But in his case, where he's aligned with the extreme left and all these, pro-black, pro-transgender, spaghetti gender propaganda people.
Pro-spaghetti people.
He is presenting them with a challenge, an ideological challenge.
Okay.
And we're going to see how they handle that.
Let's do it. I'm down.
Let's
get it ready.
Let me pull up the video here.
Hold on, folks.
I don't have it in my notes, so I have to do a quick search for it. But I think
you can do it.
I think we'll find it fairly simply here. And the only reason I want to pull up the video is because I want you to know that I'm not BSing on what he said. We back up what we say here with facts.
Okay.
And we were able to locate the video here. So let's swap over to that.
Got to change the camera real quick. And
okay.
voila!
Like we said, Ibram Kendi, Joseph Goebbels of the pro-black left. Okay. This is a guy, his number 3 book on Amazon right now for civil rights, How to Be an Anti-Racist. He is consulted as the guy for all this pro-black propaganda that you're seeing in the media right now. And
Okay.
this is what he has to say about his daughter potentially being transgender.
Okay. Should we read that for the podcasters?
Talking about race, even talking about
They'll hear it.
gender. You know, I think it was last week. My daughter came home and said she wanted to be a boy. You know, which was horrifying for my wife to hear, myself to hear, and so of course, you know, we're like, okay, what affirmative messages about girlhood, you know, can we be teaching her to protect her from whatever she's hearing in our home or even outside of our home that would make her want to be a boy. And I suspect it's the same thing with, you know, kids of color, in which they're regularly hearing these messages that maybe may want them to want to be white, or even white children who are like, I'm happy I'm white, right? You know, what affirmative messages are we teaching them to break down those ideas?
So he manages to throw in some incredible levels of racism there at the end,
Little bit.
where he's disgusted by the fact that his daughter may be coming out as transgender. He's equally as disgusted by white people who say they're proud to be white. So in true fashion, the Joseph Goebbels of the black modern day black movement today throws out some horrifying, you know, racism there at the end. But the point is, the line where he said he was horrified by his daughter suggesting that potentially she was transgender, and then his response was what? This is the funny part, because it's almost like the self-aware wolves. You know what the self-aware wolves are?
Nuh-uh.
It's like where you become self-aware, but then you realize that you're the bad guy.
Oh, okay.
Self-aware, he becomes slightly self-aware, and then he realizes that his daughter is being influenced by external forces of propaganda.
Yep.
And then he asks the question, how can we reinforce her femininity and her girlhood in a way that will counteract the propaganda that she receives from other sources? That's the most hilarious part about this whole thing.
Or maybe
is
just don't let your kid hang out and talk to people that are spreading this poison mindset.
So he's been, there's been, you know, transphobic remarks about him everywhere.
He's not saying like transgender people are horrific. He's just
No.
saying like his daughter telling him that she wants to be a boy. Like if I was a parent and I had a kid tell me that, I would be horrified too, because that's not something that you want for your children.
Right, but if you're
an SJW anti-white person,
you would be happy.
Yeah,
you
you
would be
should be
encouraging
happy.
it. You would be cheering. You'd be jumping up and down. He's like,
you'd be
oh
taking them to
yeah.
the doctor and getting them hormone replacement therapy.
Like, what's your new name?
Yeah, what's your name? Yeah.
So we've seen responses from.
Well, I'm glad that like somebody's calling him out, but
So-
I don't think he's transphobic.
Well, yeah, people are they're pointing out the hypocrisy, and that's not why I bring this up. I'm not pointing out this to bring up the hypocrisy argument, because we all know that doesn't mean anything. It's completely pointless. But what's happening here is that you're seeing people on the left who would normally call out transphobia at the slightest hint of it, even just the mere suggestion that you don't fully 100% encourage and accept trans people, which is what we saw there. He said he was disgusted, or he was horrified,
He was horrified.
by his daughter potentially saying that she might be trans, and normally that would be considered transphobic.
Yeah.
Anything but an enthusiastic accepting of that is transphobic. But in this case, the people on the left, like Ida Bay Wells, who is the person who created the 1619 Project,
Yeah.
she came out, and all of a sudden, now when it's somebody who's politically aligned with them, what is their response? They say, oh, well, this could be interpreted as transphobic.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you're in that mindset, it could be definitely.
Now, the only reason that he gets a pass for that is because he is the Joseph Goebbels. If you're one rank below Joseph, you don't get that pass. He is the king
Okay.
of the propaganda for pro-black. That's why he gets this pass, because it's that intersectionality.
Yeah.
Right? We know, okay, we can't call him out on transphobia because he's
done so much for black people.
He's the author of How to Be an Anti-Racist.
Yeah, he's
the
totally
author
anti-racist.
of Anti-Racist Baby. We cannot call him out on this, so he has immunity from being a transphobe. But this is part of our left eating its own segment, because even guys who are at the tippy top, like Abram Kendi are going to say some wild stuff like that. And when that happens, when you're not at Abram Kendi's level, because he's, like I said, the tippy top, the Joseph Goebbels, they're going to get completely annihilated, completely destroyed.
Yeah.
And they're going to eat themselves from the inside out.
They're definitely eating themselves already. So
It
just
will-
let them feast.
completely destroy themselves.
Yeah, that whole. I remember I went to Barnes and Noble to buy Candace Owens' book, and I saw a whole freaking table in the front of Barnes and Noble that was all anti-racist material, and it had anti-racist baby in that
Yep.
on that table.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to pick everything up and like go put it away because I was like, this is nonsense. But since it's not my Barnes and Noble, I can't do that.
Holly's got a great line. She says, I can't wait to tell my leftist friends that and family that I can't read anti-racist because the author is a transphobe.
There you go. It's a good reason not to read anti-racist material from this guy.
No, it's 100% true.
I mean, you shouldn't read it anyways and give this guy money.
And he just came out with a new book.
Oh my god.
So, yeah, no, he's, like I said, the the leftist Joseph Goebbels for the pro-black propaganda.
Commander Osa says he's a transphobe, now J.K. Rowling 2.0. Even though J.K. Rowling isn't transphobic at all either.
Well, that's a perfect example of what we're talking about with the lefties around. I think she definitely wasn't like a Trump supporter.
No, she was not at all. She did not
But
like
she
Trump.
just happened to come out with a mildly moderate segment. Again, the only criteria that you need to meet to not be completely destroyed and eaten by your own side is that you don't enthusiastically support something.
Yeah.
So if you don't enthusiastically support, if you just even slightly question, say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be giving hormone blockers to 8-year-olds.
Yeah.
If you say that, transphobic.
Or in J.K. Rowling's case, she wasn't even saying anything like that, quite as radical. All she was saying was the lived experiences that biological women like me and trans women face in their life is not comparable. So to sit there and call a trans woman and like try to trick people in saying that they're a real woman is not true at all. Like a trans woman will never know what it's like to carry a baby. They'll never know what it's like to have a period. They will not know what it's like to have real boobs.
It's debatable.
Like they didn't go through girl puberty, so they're not going to be able to live those same life. And that's
Yeah,
all.
see that argument's rooted way too much in biology.
Yeah,
And that's way too scientific.
That's literally why they slapped the transphobe label on J.K. Rowling. She never in that interview did she say like, I hate trans people. I don't think they have the right to exist. Like they're disgusting, inhuman. All she was saying was
She never said I'm irrationally afraid of trans people, which is what transphobia actually
she
would
never said like I'm afraid of them, I don't want anything to do with them. All she was saying was the way that we are tailoring language now, and she's right about this, is that we are basically trying to erase biological women and just mesh in trans women into biological women when like that's not like they're not the same.
Feminists slowly realizing that they've created a Frankenstein that's gonna that's gonna fight back against them, which is what we're already seeing with the Biden stuff. We've already talked about how he already signed an executive order to legalize, women competing with men in sports, and we all know how that's going to turn out. Women sharing locker rooms with men, all that kind of stuff. Basically, all the feminists were upset that exactly what you're saying. They're going to erase real women.
Well, I already think that there's quite a few.
That was the hashtag, Biden erased women.
There's quite a few gays and lesbians like me that feel like the trannies kind of just need their own little category to figure their own stuff out because they are they're swooping into the LGBT community and being like, we're one of you, we're like you. And if you don't want to date us because we're freaking mutants, then you're a transphobe. And so lesbians like me who are not into the trannies, I would never date a tranny. I would hang out with one and be friends with one, but I would never date one. I would never want to marry one and have a life with one.
It's transphobic.
I'm a transphobe.
Yep. If you don't want to date one,
And
you're
I
transphobic.
feel like they want me to become a trans man. They want to erase lesbians and gays and just make us all into trannies.
Everybody's a tranny.
Yeah, make everybody a tranny. If you don't fit into society or you think differently or want to dress differently, express yourself differently, you're a tranny. And it's like, no, I'm a girl. I have girl parts. I just have a different fashion sense. That's literally all it is. And I like the same sex. Like, literally all it is. But the trannies come in and try to ruin things. Again, like here they are. They are putting this guy on the hot seat because he said that his daughter, who's probably under the age of 18,
Yes.
says to him, like, I want to be a boy.
She's in grade school, I think.
If I was a father or a mother and I had my child
If you were a father, you could be a father.
yeah, if I
you
was
want to be.
if I like
You
in
want to
another
identify
life,
as a
yeah,
father,
if I
you
wanted
could.
to. One of my children came to me and said that they thought that they wanted to be a boy or a girl, whatever. I would be horrified too.
Mm-hmm.
Horrified does not mean like hate. Horrified just means like surprised or, just kind of like taken back. It's not necessarily like, oh my, it's not rooted in hate. It's just rooted in
I don't know. I think a lot of these green-haired, nose pierced leftists, they would cheer that on. It's almost like they would encourage that. Every day their child comes home from school, they would anticipate them saying, "Hey, mommy, I think I'm a boy," or "Hey, mommy, I think I'm actually a girl."
no,
Like
you
they
are.
want that. I think that because in most cases, let's be honest, the parents are the ones encouraging it.
Yeah, a little
And the
bit.
parents are the ones who are putting that idea into their heads. So if a parent comes out and says it's horrifying, it means they weren't pumping their kids full of that propaganda.
That means that they're a
which
good
means
parent.
which means that they were transphobic.
Oh my god, no.
Yeah,
that means
so-
that they're a good
See,
parent.
he's transphobic either way. Don't try to get him out of it. He's transphobic.
Not sure says nothing wrong with a little bit of scissor action. No, scissoring is not a thing for me. No, disgusting. Get out of here with that nonsense.
In Germany, the trains always run on time. Biden signed an executive order to make Amtrak run on time. Sound familiar? Oh, yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what we need.
Trains in America.
We have tons of trains in America, but
They're awful.
what we've all been lacking is like trains being on time in America. That's what's going to fix everything. Trains being on time.
That's a good point. The collective functionality and productivity of America will vastly increase once the trains are actually on time.
All the mind virus will go away slowly when the trains.
Well, once
are
they
on time.
outlaw driving cars, then
We all-
this is just the okay. Let's play the conspiracy theorist.
Okay.
This is just a pretense to outlawing driving cars
Yep.
because
Globalism.
they want the trains to work well.
Yeah, they want to connect. They want to connect all the continents with trains. They kind of do. They want to connect it with highways and trains.
I'm sure they could build something over the Atlantic Strait,
Yeah, I mean
Arctic,
the Arctic. Yeah,
whatever
mom
that is,
was at-
Bering Strait.
my mom was actually the one that told me about that. How they've been talking on a global initiative
Yes, I want a tube as well.
to get highways and freeways that go across continents and stuff, like go across like oceans and connect continents. And I was like, I don't know if I would go over those things, but it's a cool
I
idea.
don't know. I mean, even if you let's say you make it to Russia via Alaska, you're still in the middle of absolute nowhere,
Yes.
Siberia, for at least 10 hours.
Yes.
Screw that.
No, thank you. I'm
Yeah.
good.
Let's talk about. I want to bring up because chat's talking about. We got to mention here of Biden not curing cancer yet, and I want to point out another prediction that I made that I think's been at least until now being held true, because I made the prediction that when Biden gets in, I said,
COVID's gonna
It's-
go away.
well, I think I inferred that, yeah, but my main point was that Biden is just an establishment candidate, and that the left doesn't understand that when you get an establishment candidate, nothing's actually going to happen. You're going to hear all the nice things, but nothing's actually going to happen.
Yeah, nothing of substance actually.
Which is
takes
what I
place.
was using to reassure people like you who wanted Trump to win and are afraid that Biden was going to do all this
Yeah.
this crazy stuff, but nothing was actually.
Yeah,
Nothing's
he
actually
hasn't
gonna
really
happen.
done much except sign executive
The
orders.
left has been burning down in tears,
Hell yeah.
crying over these $2,000 checks that they're not going to get because they're $1,400. Good. The latest one that I saw was that he said that what was he gonna do that he said he was gonna do on day one? He's like, on day one, I'm going to end XYZ. I think it had to do with illegal immigration or something like that. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Everyone's complaining about Biden not doing this, not doing that, and I just kind of want to throw in a little "I told you so"
Yeah.
right now. I mean, he may do some stuff, but people need to be reminded Joe Biden's not a real person.
Yeah.
He's just a puppet.
He is with the
He's
hand
just
straight up his ass.
He's a hologram that's acting on behalf of all these other people. Nothing's gonna happen.
Might be a cyborg too.
Potentially. Well, depending on how much longer he lasts,
Not
we
a-
can judge his cyborgness off of that.
Not a Terminator cyborg like from Terminator 2, like the liquid one. He's like old school Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator. That's
the
like
prototype that can barely
yeah, they can barely get out of the factory.
So I'm enjoying I just want to point out that I'm enjoying. Oh yeah, Packy. Is that how you say your name? Packy, Pasaki.
Saki.
Whoever the new Saki,
Saki?
whoever the new press secretary is, or whatever her name is, the one that answers all the questions.
Oh, she's not cute at all.
Well, I mean, there's that, yeah, but there's also she's so incompetent.
She is.
God, it's like amateur hour.
It is. Well, the last press secretary, when she would come out, she had a big ass binder just ready.
No, she was. I mean, say what you want. I'm not being partisan about it. She was solid.
She was.
And like you said, she had a binder.
She had a binder full of
She-
notes.
I never heard her once say that I'll circle back.
Yeah, when the media asked her a question, in the middle of their question, she would like flip through it and
Yeah.
like get to the category that they're asking and then like have it ready to go.
And then clap back.
And on top
Immediately.
of that, she was kind of hot too, so that definitely helped.
She was definitely a lot more attractive than the current one. Mm-hmm. Biden could be replaced by a houseplant with a Bluetooth speaker.
Hell yeah.
No, and the left would not ask any questions about it. Mm-hmm. She can't think of her lines fast enough, so she stutters, and her questions are pre-screened. That's the
Yeah.
other thing is she probably is pre-screening the questions. There's no, actual people in there who are grilling her on anything in particular.
Throwing her softballs.
Somebody asked her about Space Force last week, and she was like, oh, Space Force. I'll have to ask the guy who runs Space Force and get back to you. She can't answer any of these
Not
questions.
sure says she looks like the mother
And
of
it-
Chucky. Kinda.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, let's circle back to that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to steal that one, so anytime anybody asks me a question in chat that I don't know the answer to, I'm just going to circle back. The last two lady speakers are good. Yeah, no, what was the one before her? She had the
Huckabee Sanders.
Huckabee Sanders. Yeah, Huckabee. She was solid, too.
She was solid too. She wasn't nearly as
a
attractive.
little rough on the eyes, but she was solid.
She was smart and she was quick and very to the point and
Sassy.
had her zingers too.
Yeah, she was sassy.
I love when they throw in the zingers, especially towards CNN or any of the big networks.
I feel like wait, hold on. I retract that statement. I don't want to ever use the statement I feel like. And I think Scott Adams is programming me to do that, by the way. I think Scott Adams is intentionally programming people to say I feel. But I think the best person to be a press secretary would be like a comedian.
I think so too.
Get someone who's used to getting heckled by the audience and who just can
Who
roast
can-
them straight back.
Yep, who can handle it and
Get
just
Bill
zing 'em
Burr.
back.
Get Bill Burr in there. Bill Burr's the legendary, clap back comedian who will, at a moment's notice, fight back with any heckler in the audience and make it part of the show.
They could definitely
Not this amateur hour stuff.
yeah.
At least the last two could clap back and fight back against because that's really what it is.
And they were women too, and they were able to fight back.
There's no legitimate questions being asked in those. It's all
Just a
about
bunch of softballs.
let me try to get a gotcha on this, or let me gotcha on this, and then you have to gotcha them back. That's like the whole point.
Stalking Horse says Norm Macdonald. What
Norm
about
Macdonald.
Adam Carolla.
Norm Macdonald would be hilarious. Oh, that would be a great skit. Somebody has to do a skit where Norm Macdonald is the press secretary, and he does like the moth joke about an answer, which is basically just him talking nonsense for like 5 minutes straight with no punchline. The joke is that it's a long drawn out thing and it's absurd. That would be great. You get just as valuable of an answer
Yeah.
as you would from Packy, or whatever her name is, Pisaki.
Saki. I don't know. Whatever her name
So
is.
there's this moth.
I think Arian in the chat said, let's just call her what she is, fire crotch. Arian, that's, I don't know what that is.
Owen Benjamin, yeah, there you go. Owen Benjamin would be good.
Owen Benjamin would be cool.
I don't think the camera would be able to get him in frame though, because his head would be over the shot because he's like 6'8".
Jesus.
So
It's always surprising when you find out
Andy
the heights of some of
Worski.
these people. Yeah.
no, Andy Worski's not on the same caliber. He
No.
would be. I don't even know what he would do. I don't think he would have a role. He's too low caliber. Don't forget Trump won. Don't
Won
forget
Psaki.
after Trump won, Packy went from the Obama admin to CNN.
Huh.
Interesting. Interesting.
I didn't know that, but that definitely makes a lot of sense. Why?
But he's got a lisp. That's true. he could be the guy for the left. We won't let him do it for the right. We'll let him do it for the left since he's got a lisp.
Isn't Owen a schizo? That is not a good idea.
That's why it would be good.
Yeah. The
That's
more
why-
crazy, the better.
That's why it would be funny.
The fact that he's actually crazy makes him a makes him a minority,
Any-
so it works
any-
better.
Any question, it is immediately somehow going to get redirected to the moon being a fake, the
Mm-hmm.
moon landing being faked. He's like, we didn't go to the moon. The radiation, it penetrates the spacecraft. There's no way, you know what I mean? And, it'd be hilarious.
That would be pretty funny.
But anyway, I gotta take a major restroom break because I chugged a soda and a gin here, and we are at roughly 2 hours.
so it's a
We-
want to call it?
We fulfilled our obligation to give you guys an excellent information packed stream here full of the latest and greatest information. So now you know about Bank of America,
Mm-hmm.
Time article, and Ibram Kendi and all that other fun stuff. And
Yep.
China, how
Yeah.
China's going to be superior.
China's definitely going to beat us.
Yep, don't put your kids in public school, people.
Yep.
Don't put your kids in public school. Or you put them in public school in China.
Yeah.
Wait, China sends their kids to school here in America. Do they have a program where we can send our kids to school in China?
Ooh.
I would do that.
That'd be nice.
I would legitimately do that. Oh, I would.
Make them
I would-
appreciate
I would
things.
send my kid to school in China
They
over
come back
America.
smarter.
Yeah,
And more,
and more masculine,
Well, and they'd come back just more eager to please you too. A little bit trained.
more disciplined. Yeah.
Yeah, they come back trained.
So if you guys enjoyed this stream, if you were found informative or entertaining in any capacity, please like, share, subscribe, all the classic YouTube stuff. If you want to follow our private community, we are available down here at weeklynarrative.locals.com. If you're listening to the podcast, you can watch the live stream every week on Tuesdays and Saturdays from 7 p.m. to roughly 9 p.m. on youtube.com/weeklynarrative. Our podcast is now available on iTunes, Google, Spotify, and Stitcher. So look for, the podcast is called Alt-Centrist, The Alt-Centrist. I forgot to mention that in the last stream, that our podcast is now available, but it's not called The Weekly Narrative.
It's called The Alt-Centrist?
It's called The Alt-Centrist.
The Alt-Centrist.
That's
Okay,
right.
good.
It's taking that name, claiming that title on all podcast platforms. So if you prefer to listen to the audio version, you can listen to us on any of those platforms.
Yes. And then, once this stream is over, join us on our after-hour stream.
That's right. We will be posting a link to on the weekly narrative.locals.com page to the Inner Circle stream. It's no longer the
Inner
after hour stream. This is the
Circle.
Inner Circle stream for those who are in the Inner Circle. It's a private stream, and you will find the link in the locals page in just a moment after we shut the stream down and take a break. But we really appreciate you guys
Yep.
joining us here today. I had fun. I hope
Love
you had
y'all.
fun too.
Even though I showed up late.
That's right.
But I love y'all.
It's okay.
Hope y'all have a good night. Stay beautiful. Stay educated. Keep your eyes and ears open at all times.
And we will see you on Tuesday,
Tuesday.
7 p.m. right here on YouTube. Thanks,
Bye-
guys.
Bye now.